Talk to us about how having kind of a just say yes mindset has opened up doors for you throughout your career, from taking on new roles to stepping into executive leadership, because I know that that's been a big thing for you.
It has. I think that, is something that has served me well. Just over time, being open to the different opportunities. Honestly, whether I thought they might be a fit or not, or aligned with my interest or not, I always learned something from them. So I kind of made the comment earlier, whether you kind of learn what you like or don't like, but I think it's just having that, building your experience, right? Building a deeper, stronger, wider foundation to build on. And so,
Have you ever missed out on an opportunity, not because you weren't ready, but because you hesitated to say yes? Research shows that professionals who embrace new challenges with a just say yes mindset are up to 40% more likely to fast track their careers than those waiting for the perfect moment. Our guest today is a powerful example of what that mindset can unlock. Carrie Stokes is a licensed PE, and she began her journey as a summer intern, but she now leads Barge Design Solutions as CEO and president. Over nearly 30 years, she has worked across departments, earned an advanced degree while working full-time, and championed a culture of continuous learning and leadership development. In today's episode, we're talking about what it really takes to grow as a leader in the civil engineering world, from embracing unexpected challenges to building a culture that empowers others to lead. So whether you're a rising engineer, a team leader, or even a CEO, you'll walk away with real-world insights on career growth, strategic leadership, and developing talent from within. I'm your host, Anthony Pisano, and this is the Civil Engineering CEO Show. All right, now I'd like to welcome our guest onto the show for today. Carrie Stokes is a licensed professional engineer. She's also the president and CEO of Barge Design Solutions. Carrie, welcome to the Civil Engineering CEO.
thank you, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you. Excited to jump in here. So maybe you can start, Carrie, by telling us a little bit about yourself, your company, and kind of what your role as a CEO and president at Barge Design Solutions kind of involves on a daily basis.
Okay, great. Well, let me start first with a little bit about Barge Design Solutions. So we are an employee-owned, multidiscipline design firm. And so we have the opportunity to partner with several client types: federal government, state and local government, several markets in the private industry, so healthcare, data centers, land development, industrial. And then at Barge, we really have a comprehensive set of technical professionals. So kind of really life cycle of the project, starting with, we've got surveyors, planners, environmental specialists thinking about site selection, due diligence. And then we have design professionals, all sorts of engineers, architects, landscape architects. So Barge, we are headquartered in Nashville. We were founded in 1955. So I'm excited to say we are celebrating our 70th anniversary, which is pretty exciting.
Congrats.
We now have a footprint really across the Southeast, but serve clients across the U.S. So that's a little bit about Barge. I actually started at Barge. My journey began as an intern. So I came to Nashville to go to Vanderbilt University, got my degree in civil environmental engineering, started as a summer intern, worked a few hours a week during my senior year just to keep my foot in the door, and then have had the opportunity to be at Barge since that time, and started in the role as CEO on March 1. My journey has included a lot of different stops and different roles, from technical to leadership, different groups. And so it's been a pretty exciting journey.
That's awesome. And yeah, congrats on the 70 years. I think that's amazing. I guess one thing I'll just ask you as a follow-up to that is, and I think it's awesome that you kind of started as an intern and have kind of worked your way to the CEO. That's really, really awesome. And I know that when civil engineers start their careers, they very rarely say, my goal is to become the CEO. So I'm just curious, as in terms of the evolution of your career, like at what point you kind of felt like you really wanted to get into higher levels of leadership, or like how that kind of progressed for you?
No, I mean, that's great because, yeah, sitting in engineering school, I'm pretty sure I wasn't gonna be doing I wouldn't have thought about doing podcasts and video interviews, right? That's probably not what entered my mind. I did know I always enjoyed math and science. You hear that from a lot of engineers. Like, that was my passion in school, but I did realize pretty quickly after I graduated, started working, I love engineering and solving problems, but what I really got excited about was the business. So the consulting business. And so when I went back, worked full time, but was a part-time student and got my master's. And I did that initially because I really wanted to get a stronger technical foundation. And just kind of the way it worked out, being a part-time student, class availability, ended up gravitating toward like construction law, project management. And that's where I found like, oh, okay, this is how I kind of bridge the gap, right, of the business and the technical. And so from then, kind of that point forward, I really got into the business side of things, leadership. And then I think at some point, as most leaders, a common trait, you're a constant learner, right? You're trying to improve yourself and what you can bring to the team. And so there was kind of that thought of, okay, well, what's next? And also, I think what I really appreciate at Barge is part of it too is what's next, because as I move on, that opens up an opportunity for someone else, right? So Barge is really committed to developing our internal talent and giving them pathways, to take on more responsibility and have more of an impact.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, that's the reason I started the Engineering Management Institute is because as a civil engineer myself, I knew that we needed certain skill sets to become kind of partners in the company that I was in at the time. Project management, people leadership, but they just weren't offered, which is,
Mhm.
one of the reasons that I created this company because I just felt like there was a huge gap in that. And like, how can you ask a civil engineer to be capable of these certain skill sets, but not like provide that development? And I think now a lot more companies like Barge are like investing more in those types of skill sets for their professionals, thankfully, but definitely took some time to get here. But I do want to dive in a little bit more to kind of some of the things you said there around your leadership development. Because I think a lot of technical professionals, a lot of civil engineers, like they want to become managers, they want to become leaders, but again, they can't connect the dots, so to speak, and they're not really sure how they're going to have the time to develop themselves. So as you mentioned, you did earn your master's degree while you were working full time, and then later you completed a year-long leadership program to kind of help prepare you for executive leadership. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how those experiences kind of influenced your passion for leadership or shaped the way that you approached your leadership or your growth. Can you talk about like some of those things that you did?
Yeah. When I went back and got my master's, it was really important, operating in this space. You do want a really strong technical background, right? Whether you're engaging as a project manager or leader, you need to be able to relate and understand how the project comes together, the opportunities, the challenges, and ask good questions. So for me, having that strong technical foundation was key. As I shared, though, my kind of interest and passion really became around engaging with our clients, really, how can we best partner with them, best serve them, leading the teams, better understanding the business. And so we have both at Barge kind of internal leadership programs, which I was able to take advantage of, kind of the hard skills and the soft skills. And then we certainly promote engagement and leadership opportunities in like professional organizations, ACEC or ASCE, and other things. And so I think the benefit to me of those things, a lot of times, I was able to learn and try what I liked and what I didn't like, which I think is just as important. And even just, leadership styles, what would be a good fit for me, what I had a good experience and where I didn't. So kind of learning, okay, as I settle into new roles, the thing about it is you can read a lot of leadership books, you can listen to a lot of things, but it has to be true to you, right? And so that's where I think it's really important that people have exposure to different things because you're going to be the best leader when it's authentic and it's a style that's true to you.
Yeah, I think that that's great. And I think that that's really important because I think as engineers, we're looking for that equation that we can plug in the numbers and get an answer. And I think when it comes to
Yes.
right, right. When it comes to leadership, there isn't
That's right.
exactly. I haven't found an equation just yet. I'll have to
Well,
still look around a little bit, but
if you
um
find it, let me know.
yeah, yeah. But you're right. I mean, I think a big part of leadership is kind of having a feel for every person, every stakeholder on your project, right? And like how you can interact with them and how you can engage with them and how you can maybe get the most out of them depending on the situation, right? And that's just
Yeah.
not it's just not science. It's just something that there's a feel for, and then you build that up over time.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. And I think your point about, you know, being adaptive, kind of like, right, being like flexible to different people that you're dealing with is just a big part of leadership, really.
Very much. I mean, we just got back the last day and a half. We had a senior leadership retreat, and we've all been in business for decades. We've all done a lot of different assessments, but we did a new one. It was called the Six Working Geniuses. But the value in that was usually those aren't big surprises to yourself about kind of what motivates you and how you work. But when you look at it as a team, right, you see kind of where you have a lot of overlaps or where you have gaps or where you might need to engage more or someone step up. So, to your point, and just leadership teams kind of always come together in different ways. And so knowing the individual helps you get the most out of the team. Right.
Absolutely. In fact, when we do our PM, we build a lot of custom PM programs for companies. But when we do the first session, regardless of what company it is, we like to go through this exercise where you kind of figure out what your work style is.
Yeah.
And then we kind of ask them to think about your team and think about what the work styles are of your team members, because that could drive your communications with them, your engagement with them. And then I kind of tell them, think about your family and their work styles, right? Because it's very similar in that, like, just anyone you're interacting with, if they're a different work style or personality than you, you're going to have to communicate a little bit different, you know?
Yes. Well, and that's kind of the beauty of a lot of the leadership and development. It applies here at work, but it applies at home too, right?
Yeah. Just so happens I'm married to a civil engineer, but that's another story for another podcast. Um, but anyway, so in your career, in any engineer's career, there's going to be a lot of opportunities that may come across your desk. Talk to us about how having kind of a just say yes mindset has opened up doors for you throughout your career, from taking on new roles to stepping into executive leadership, because I know that that's been a big thing for you.
It has. I think that, is something that has served me well. Just over time, being open to the different opportunities. Honestly, whether I thought they might be a fit or not, or aligned with my interest or not, I always learned something from them. So I kind of made the comment earlier, whether you kind of learn what you like or don't like, but I think it's just having that, building your experience, right? Building a deeper, stronger, wider foundation to build on. And so, one of the opportunities I remember, so my background, civil environmental, the company was kind of reorganizing and they said, hey, we want you to lead this group, and it's environmental and civil and landscape architecture and planning. And it makes sense to bring those pieces together. But I was like, oh, okay, I don't really know much about, but it was great, right? Because you think about what you can bring to the table, kind of your strengths, and then leveraging that team. So I think just saying yes. I also think for emerging leaders and professionals looking for additional roles, responsibilities, it's in with firms like Barge and others, but it's also whether the professional organization, just nonprofits. And so it was actually at a nonprofit where I probably took one of the biggest leaps. We have a women's organization here in Nashville. I said, hey, I've been a member for a long time, but I think it's probably my opportunity to step up and lead. And they called and said, hey, would you want to lead our marketing communications efforts? And I was like, you know who you called? Like, I'm an engineer, I'm an engineer, right? But to their credit, we're like, hey, like, you just need to lead the team. You don't need to be an expert. You'll have that. And so I think it's not shying away from opportunities like that maybe aren't an obvious fit, but provide a lot of value. And that is a lot of the conversations that we have now. I love our young professionals, and they're very driven. And so they want to know, I do this, and then in 90 days, I do this, and then I this. And so a lot of the conversation is just be open opportunities, have some flexibility, because you don't want to limit yourself, right? You don't want to unknowingly kind of paint yourself in a corner, because you never know what you might find your passion that you didn't think, you didn't think
Yeah.
you'd head that way, right? Like, I didn't think about being CEO, but I'm so excited and proud for the opportunity.
Yeah, sounds like what I tell my kids every day. Like, don't don't just
No,
say no, try it.
just try it. I mean, what's going to
Yeah,
happen now?
right, right. So you mentioned earlier that you started at Barge as an intern and, have been there kind of ever since, which is awesome. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how being in a company for so long and maybe working in different departments and different aspects and how that's kind of helped your leadership journey there.
I what I appreciate now even more setting in the CEO role is because I did have that opportunity to work in different groups, get exposure to different disciplines. Last year, I had the opportunity to serve in our chief of staff role, and that was the first time we'd ever had it. And that really kind of increased my engagement with our business services team. So, marketing, accounting. I'd always been a user of their services, but kind of seeing things from their perspective it kind of opens it's a whole new light, right? So I think we all benefit from just having that opportunity to see it from the other side, right? Because I think it makes us a better a better client, better internal client, better user of the services. and and so it adds a lot of value, and that's one of the things I really appreciate about Barge is we're open to people kind of moving through different paths, trying different things, because we firmly believe the more well-rounded you are, the better you can serve your team and clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something that is probably not, kind of underrated in the sense, and that a lot of people don't get that experience. I know for me, I practiced as a civil engineer, but then when I started EMI, it was kind of started as like me, myself, and I. And I was doing the podcast, editing the podcast, right? Doing everything, doing the instruction. And now we have teams of people. But for me, like if I want to review something, I really understand it because I know how to, I did it before. I did the instruction, I designed the slides. Now we have a design team. So it's really, really beneficial, I think, for leadership because you've been there, you know what they're doing, right? And like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And you could
Yeah. And
just,
I would add even, on the business side, we several years ago kind of stepped back, and you probably experienced, a lot of people think, okay, I want to be a project manager because that's how I'm going to move up in the firm. And we wanted to really make sure we were highlighting there are pathways kind of regardless of your interest. We need people to, really dig into the technical to become the subject matter expert and what that path is, right? There is a PM path, there is a sales path, there is a management path. And so we kind of purposely, when we show those kind of career ladders, we kind of have it blurred, visually. So like, hey, you can go over here and try, you can be an associate project manager, and if that's not your thing, that's okay, but you're gonna be better for having that experience. And we do have everyone that we expose. We call it Barge 101, but that's kind of the business of, right, how we how we make money, how we serve our clients. Because regardless
right.
of what role you're in, you need to know how you contribute.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I I read a book recently. It was called The Book of Joe, which was about Joe Madden, who was a minor. Well, he was a minor league coach for years, and then he got to the major leagues, and he won the first World Series with the Cubs in 100 years. Someone got me the book for Christmas because he went to the same college as me. So anyway, in reading the book, he was in the minor leagues as a coach for about 19 years, and he couldn't break into the major leagues. He kept getting rejected. They wouldn't bring him up. And what he said that I thought was interesting, which
Mhm.
kind of you reminded me of, is he said like the struggle of that was a real important part of his development. And when he got to the majors, if he didn't have that struggle, he wouldn't have been able to be such a great kind of manager at the leadership levels. And my point is that kind of what you're talking about, and probably a lot of our listeners, depending on what part of their career they're in, is you're going to you're going to try different things in your career. You're going to be working in one area for a while and maybe get a little bored, but then you're going to shift to something else. But I think like all those experiences are kind of building you up, right, for like what's next. And so, if you do get frustrated or you feel like you're getting a little stagnant in your career, I think it happens to everybody. But I think at some point you're going to look back and say that experience that I had was extremely valuable. I'm going to like kind of lean on that now going forward.
Right. Right. And I think part of it is the experience you gained. And also, I don't want to underestimate the network that is built. So, I have been at Barge for almost 30 years. So I know people in all of our offices and all of our different groups. And so those relationships are a value to me, and certainly, a value to the others, right? We've built kind of an understanding of how we work and expectations, and they feel like they can call me and reach out. So I think that's the other thing, I just I don't want our emerging leaders or others to underestimate the value of their relationships internal to their organization, and then certainly outside as well, because those are wonderful resources when you can call someone and say, "Hey," even if they're in the same industry or not, right? There's a lot of common challenges, workforce development or, hiring and retention, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and Karen makes a great point about the network, right? I mean, someone, even people that maybe leave Barge, maybe they become clients, maybe they go to a
Right.
municipality and you end up working
Right.
with them again, right? So
Yes.
your network is really a big opening of opportunities for you in the future as a leader in all kinds of different ways, and that's important too. So, Carrie, you recently became CEO during Barge's 70th anniversary. You mentioned that earlier, a major milestone, which is awesome for the company. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you're honoring the company's legacy while also kind of leading it into the next chapter of growth and innovation. Like, talk about your approach to this position now.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and one I certainly have been giving a lot of thought to. So I shared we're employee owned. So we actually have the opportunity every year where we bring all of our employees together, their families, and we get together annual meeting and talk about, where we are as a firm, where we're going. And this year we really had the opportunity to reflect kind of on the past 70 years, right? And it wasn't always easy, but we took the opportunity to really we actually had an artist there who kind of was polling people and drawing what's the thing that you want to make sure we preserve, that works so well or that you appreciated in our past, what's working now, what are you excited about. And so I think the things that we will remain true to is, we're going to invest in our people. We want our purpose really is to unleash, the potential of our people, our clients, and our community. So it's invest in our people, and then just having the curiosity and the courage to sometimes make the hard decisions or lean in. We have several markets right now, infrastructure, data centers, that have a lot of investment, and we want to make sure we're in that market, we're leveraging that to the best interest of our staff and our firm. And so a lot of things to be excited about. We have Barge has experienced significant growth in the last several years, and so we're looking about how do we maintain that and how do we address kind of the growing pains that come along along with significant growth, right? So we're not having our head in the sand about that. And that is how do we use, technology, AI? How do we embrace and support that, but in a way that our team members know where we stand, how we want them to engage, and what support they're going to have in that. So that's certainly a big topic of conversation for us.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and all these things are evolving and important in our industry, of course, today. So, Carrie, at EMI, we're passionate about leadership development, project management. We spend a lot of time building these programs and delivering them and trying to do it in an engaging way. The reason I started EMI is because I used to get sent to the project management boot camps as an engineer, and
Yeah,
I would go for a day and I'd get maybe it was good information, but it was too much information, and then you go back to your desk and forget about it. You're sucked back into your projects. Now, I know you have worked a lot about, or you've championed leadership and
we
skill
did.
building programs at Barge that kind of go beyond technical training. What does building a strong internal pipeline look like in the civil engineering industry, and how do you invest in your future leaders at Barge? Just take us through what that looks like for
Okay.
you and how you think about that.
Yeah, developing our internal pipeline is key, right? And I'm a beneficiary and a great example, intern to CEO. That's something that we're really looking kind of through the life cycle of someone's career. So we have a wonderful, really robust intern program that we sponsor that really translates into a lot of new hires for us. We historically have had several development programs for some of our senior staff. But what we identified, and you probably hear this a lot, when people are looking for talent, it's kind of that mid-level staff managers that's really hard to find. And so we want to make sure that we're developing in the right areas there for, our staff that are at large. And so one of the things that we actually are rolling out next week and I'm really excited about is a emerging leadership program. So, a lot of, engineers, they're really focused on getting their licensure, right? Getting their PE. And then it's kind of like, oh, wait. what's next, because
Right.
maybe I'm not quite ready to be a project manager. I'm not quite ready, to lead this team. And so we developed this program that's to kind of answer the question, the what's next. So it is both about, um, you know, emotional kind of intelligence, the technical piece, again, how we make money, but there's a lot of it where it's kind of to your point about setting in a classroom, it's going to be really engaging. So it includes several parts. We're going to have presented content, but we also have mentorships match, like from our kind of senior leadership development. They're going to serve as mentors to our emerging leaders. We're going to have our executive team come in and speak to them and engage with them in different sessions. They're going to have a capstone project.
So there's a
And then
lot of layers to it. Like,
yeah, it's just got a lot of layers because we've all been through those programs. And again, it's a lot of good content, but would you get talked at for,
yeah,
8 hours a day, and then you kind of just go back to work and don't know how to apply it?
right.
That's not the best return on that investment. So this is really built kind of thinking about how do people take in information? How do we build the network of that kind of class, that cohort, and to others, outside the firm, and then the projects and the mentoring that will extend beyond the classroom. So it's them really getting asked, okay, what are you doing now? How are you putting into practice? And how can I help support you? Right. Because we continue to learn. So,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, what I love about that is it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities for those going through the program to interact with leaders within the organization,
yes,
right? Because
very much.
that's to me where you're going to learn a lot. I mean, you're going to learn stuff in the classroom, you're going to try to apply it. But then I think most of the time when I interview people on our project management podcast, for example, and I asked them what's been the biggest like help in your project management efforts, they're like another PM that has mentored me that was really experienced, right? It always a lot of times it comes back to that. So that's great that you've kind of got that into the program. So, for other civil engineering CEOs and aspiring leaders that might be listening for today, what kind of final piece of advice that can you share about embracing opportunity, taking initiative, leading with confidence? These are sounds like things that you've been really focused on in your career. What kind of parting advice can you leave for
Yeah.
leaders in the civil engineering industry?
That's a great question. And I would say, as we were talking about earlier in the conversation, say yes to the opportunities. But I also encourage you, you are your biggest advocate, right, for your career development. And so don't hesitate to reach out and say, don't wait to be asked, right? Don't wait to be asked to say yes or no. Reach out and share, hey, I'm really interested in, this thing. Can I get an opportunity to engage on that kind of project or go out on that, project site? And so I would really just encourage, I think sometimes, again, people are working their plan and maybe they're kind of waiting, hoping it happens in this order. But just, we're not mind readers. I think you'll find those people want to support their staff and their team, right? But if we don't know, we can't help. So that's always my biggest, just, don't be shy. Now don't maybe expect that it's going to happen, snap of the fingers or happen tomorrow. Be a little patient, but make your kind of desires known where you're interested. And I think, most firms, I know Barge has been, I think most firms would love to give people opportunities.
That's great advice. And I had a friend of mine who's a civil engineer who messaged me a couple weeks ago, and he said, they said I was going to be promoted to a certain level. Nothing's happening. It's been a while. And I said, ask him. I mean, like to your point, like, be proactive. Hey, can we get together? And I want to talk about my career timeline. I just want to get a feel for it. Like, I mean, I know it sounds obvious after you say it, but like at the end of the day, a lot of times we don't realize, like, just ask, you
That's
know,
right.
be proactive in your career development. I mean, it's, no one else is going to kind of do it for you. So you have to kind of get out there and do it yourself. So, well, Carrie Stokes, licensed professional engineer from intern to now CEO and president at Barge Design Solutions. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Civil Engineering CEO.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Carrie. It is very inspiring to see someone go from an intern with a company over years to become the CEO and president. I congratulate her, and I hope that you can leverage some of the advice that she shared with us today. Please subscribe to our channel here if you like this one, because we do put out videos like this regularly to help engineers become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.